The stock split should allow for more options trading. To me, I would see it more as a bear sign just because the stock is so overinflated compared to, a year ago.
Well, that's interesting you say it's overinflated from a year ago, because I just wanted to point out just the revenue growth year over year that Nvidia has had. And I know you mentioned GAAP earnings and diluted earnings per share.
Yeah.
And with their diluted earnings per share, they're up over 629% year over year from Q1.
Is that a GAAP diluted?
Yes, that is pulled from Nvidia.
I don't think I've seen that number. So the number that I was looking at was their GAAP diluted shares over the past 2 years. The revenue definitely has seen a huge surge. It's up triple or quadruple over the past 2 years. But if their GAAP diluted earnings is only up 35%, to me that signals that they're losing margins. Which, as you grow a company, you tend to lose margins, just like we saw with Tesla. But that means,
and that makes sense.
Yeah. Good.
But also with Nvidia, see, the Nvidia now has the same likeness as Apple, right? They're a $3 trillion company. They're one of the most valuable in the world. When you think of AI, you think of Nvidia. When you think of GPUs, you think of Nvidia. These are just keys to just the notoriety that they've gained and their early dominance and their expansion. And they have a very strong ecosystem within their financial balance. Like, they don't just make all their money in one sector. They're very diverse, and they have a ton of investments going to other companies as well. And for cloud computing, it just depends on what they want to do, but they have the money for it. So
yeah, I mean, they definitely came up with a lot of cash, but to me, they're coming up with a lot of cash in a way that I wouldn't want as a shareholder. So over the past 5-6 months since January, they have filed 19 Form 144s, which is when the company is selling shares, basically diluting shareholders at this point. And they have filed again 19 Form 144s for a total of 1.4 million shares. I haven't looked at the, not open interest, I keep thinking of options trading, but the shares outstanding and how much that has diluted shareholders. Yeah, I'm seeing from tip ranks they have 2.5 billion shares available on the public market, and they've sold 1.4 million. So it's not a huge amount, but they have shown continuous dilution of shareholders over the past 2 years. I mean, you can look just at their diluted earnings per share and how much that has gone up in comparison to non-diluted shares.
Yeah, I think you bring a great point with that. And like I mentioned earlier, probably one of the most main reasons why Nvidia is selling their own stock is just for liquidation, for cash, just to move stuff around if they need to. And being able to sell their own stock just helps them do that. It's just the easiest way for them to get money or get their hands on money that they don't already have, but they know they do have.
Yeah.
And so I don't see it as a bad thing, because also in August of 2023, Nvidia said that they were going to buy back over $25 billion of its own shares.
From what I've seen, they did a lot of buybacks last year. But the reasoning behind the buybacks that they were doing was to offset the dilution that they were creating whenever they were doing the employee stock compensation program. So one way that companies can increase their earnings per share, when it comes to non-GAAP at least, you can't do the same with GAAP, but you can do employee stock compensation, and that raises your non-GAAP because it's a non-cash expense. Whenever you're issuing all of these options, you're allowing basically new shares to be created that are being allocated towards all these employees, which has been a large part of the dilution that they've created over the past couple of years.
Well, and one thing to note with buybacks, right? So I think Nvidia is being aggressive with the buybacks because they believe, it's a sign that they know that their own stock is undervalued. And with their accelerated growth, they'll continue to do so on great earnings and performances.
Yeah.
And their revenue increases quarter over quarter, which helps shareholders as well. And Nvidia, just in this last year, spent over 27% of their revenue on research and development last year with rival chip companies, which is insane, I think. Just to spend a quarter of your revenue alone on research and development for the future is a very ambitious but trailblazing thing to do as a company.